A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for staying tuned to Y254 TV. I hope you've had a lovely day today. I am your host, Cheryl Blessing, and you are watching The Power Talk Show. Now, this evening, we're having an interesting conversation because so many of us actually go through what we're going to talk about today. We're talking about adulting. How do we navigate adulting? Because there's an idea that we had when we were kids. We used to romanticize the idea of being an adult, or we had maybe some perception from the movies we watched, the media we consumed. We thought adulting was a certain way, but then tunafika kwa ground tunapata it's completely different, or it might be the same but with more hassles and more things that you have to maneuver. That is one thing I want us to have a conversation on this evening on the Power Talk Show. We're talking about navigating adulting and some of the things that we need to take note of, especially because so many of us are either young adults, we've either finished high school, we're trying to figure out ourselves, ama we're already maybe well into our 30s and we still have no idea what we need to do about certain things. So this evening, we're going to have a conversation on this, and I'm joined live on set by Rose Mbinya. Karibu sana, Rose. How are you feeling?
I'm great.
It's such a pleasure to have you here.
I appreciate. Asante.
It's nice to have you here. And then next to Rose, we have Glantwil Ruvinzu, who's been here before. Karibu tena.
Thank you so much, Asante.
Mkwaje, mko poa?
Yeah, kabisa.
Yeah, I thank God. I'm so happy to have both of you here tonight. And I'm also looking forward to this conversation with you back at home as well. I want to hear from you. What do you think about this? Because so many of you have most of these experiences that we're talking about. And you can go on our platforms at Y254 across all platforms. And I've asked you a question. What is the biggest lesson adulting has taught you so far? What's the one lesson, the biggest lesson that you've learned about adulting so far? You may be maybe just getting into your 20s, you may be well into your mid-20s, or you're in your 30s. But what's the biggest lesson about adulting that you've learned so far? Go on our platforms at Y254 and let us know about that as we continue with this conversation. So to kickstart the conversation, Mimi personally, to be honest, when I thought about being an adult, it was such a fun thing. I was looking forward to becoming an adult. I couldn't wait. And then I became an adult. And I don't know, like, there are things that I wasn't expecting or the things that I wasn't told about. Rose, do you think our childhood set us up for failure, the way we probably visualized adulting or our perceptions? Do you think that set us up for failure because we got to adulting and then we realized it's a bit more complicated than what we thought?
I'd say this, it doesn't set us to failure, first of all. One thing is different backgrounds, different childhood traumas or experiences, they lead you to a different experience. And sometimes you think adulthood comes when you're already grown. There are people who have experienced adulthood when they're young, they're not even ready to experience adulthood. And what I can say is, with time, it's a whole what we call a journey. Every single day you experience something different. And if you're willing to learn, you're not set for failure. But if you're not willing to learn, definitely you're not going to be in the best place to actually live your life the way you would want it, because depending on how you've been brought up, you're likely to know to live differently. You know, you can come where there's money and you're like, my life is supposed to be so easy, and you grow up and you realize you don't have that money enough, or maybe you're not that financial stable, so you need to work extra harder. So depending with the childhood you've gone through, you're willing to be ready. As long as you're willing to learn, you're ready to experience any type of adulthood.
I like that. I like that you've said that, because it's dependent on the different experiences that we get as children. Yeah. And then we have to be willing to learn. Yeah. Because maybe you can get to a point and realize, okay, maybe this is not exactly what I thought it was going to be. Yeah. But it doesn't mean, let's say you have to bake a cake, and you know that the cake I want is a chocolate cake, it looks like this. Alafu unapatiwa ingredients. So you're trying to figure out, how do I just wanted the cake. I did not want to start cooking from scratch. Yeah. But you have to be willing to learn so that you enjoy the cake after. Yeah. So let's talk about these different experiences of the childhood experiences, because we all come from different backgrounds. Glantwil, do you think different experiences prepare us differently? Like, tuseme mtu amelelewa tao, ako prepared differently from adulthood than mtu amelelewa in the rural settings. Do those contexts really matter when we become adults?
They actually do. They do a lot. And that's when we talk about exposure. The exposure that somebody has who was born in town, like let's say Nairobi, is different from the person who was actually born in the village, Ushago. I will use myself as an example. I was born in Nairobi, and how I was brought up is I'm a firstborn to my family. So I was taught responsibility since I was a kid. So I'm among those people who grew up as adults, but we were children. Taking care of my younger ones, learning that I have to cook for them when my parents are not there, and stuff like that. So me growing up and becoming an adult, there are things that I was already used to, because that is the kind of exposure I received. That's the kind of exposure I got. But now when I grew up, I realized that it was not just about responsibilities. There are other things. And responsibilities was not just about cooking. Responsibility was not just about me taking care of my siblings. Responsibility as an adult now, there's that aspect of taking care of bills, something that I really didn't know. And that is something I was not prepared for. But the other people at a younger age, they still had that opportunity to learn about paying of bills, because their parents maybe would give them money. The money was there. They would be given money and get to be taught on how to handle certain payments. Because kuna watu hujilea, wazazi unapata walienda ngambo, amebaki Kenya, anatumiwanga do. I saw that happen with other kids as we were growing up. So I think, how we grow up and the kind of exposure we get based on where we stay, the different locations, kind of molds us into who we become at the end.
Yeah, I really like that you say that, because you're molding, especially because when you're a child, you're really molded. It's not that you get to where you are just like that.
Yeah.
It takes some shaping. Unafunza, unaambiwa unafaa ufanye hivi, usifanye hivi, do this, do that. And there are contexts where people are taught that and some people are not, or the different realities. Kuna mtu mwenye kwao, there was just help around, so they never lifted a finger. And then there's someone who had to actively, unaenda kuchota maji kwa river, umebeba mtoto. So those different realities present life in a different way for all of us. We experience them slightly different. But adulting, I think when I think about adulting, most of the experiences, even childhood experiences, sengine ni kitu enye unaweza ambia mtu na you are all experiencing the same thing. It's just the intensity might be different. Ama whatever the situation is different, but most of the experiences ni the same. Tukiongelea relationships, issues need the same. Tukiongelea finances, the same issues. Health, same issues. So how then do we get to a point where, Rose, you're a young adult, let's say you're a teenager, or you've just finished high school, you're getting into this world where now you're an adult, you're supposed to make decisions for yourself. How then can you prepare yourself to know that this is the right thing to do and this is the wrong thing to do? Because, as an adult, you can very easily land in jail for something that's so simple. So how then do you actively make the choice and learn what's the right thing and what's the wrong thing to do?
When it comes to adulting, there's the navigation between a lot of things. You have to navigate finances, there's you taking care of yourself, there's relationships, there's how you carry yourself before people. There's also a career that it also comes along the way. So being able to learn how to navigate through all these, it's the only reason for you to be able to become a whole adult, because you need finances. There's no way you're going to survive without finances. You need good relationships. So being able to navigate through adulthood is you being able to understand the fact that we have things that are important in your life, what comes first and what goes after. And also being able to understand the fact that you are no longer a child, you're no longer a teenager, you're no longer probably in high school. So there are better things and more important things that have to be tackled in your life, better than probably being in friend groups. You need to handle your finances. There also comes where you need to understand, am I supposed to do business, or am I supposed to be in a career? So you need to understand, if it's a career, this is the path that I want to go through. So if it's a career, I need to go to campus or maybe go to college, do maybe any course that I'm supposed to do. So being able to navigate through all that. It's a business. What type of business do I like? What do I like as a person? Am I able to sell clothes? Can I do tailoring? Can I sell cosmetics? So your ability to navigate through all these is what puts you as a whole adult, because it is what you are, because you cannot survive as an adult without money.
Yeah.
You cannot survive as an adult without a career. You cannot survive as an adult without good relationship with others. So your ability to navigate through, as in your ability to agree the fact that I have to do this, and this for me to become a whole adult, because that is who you are at that point.
Yeah. And I think that also speaks of you taking responsibility for yourself.
Yes.
It's no longer your parents who tell you, enda church, osha vyombo, ni wewe unafaa ujiambie, nafaa nioshe vyombo because nimepika, nafaa nifanye hivi because it's expected of you as an adult. You have to take responsibility for yourself.
Yeah.
But the reality is, tukimaliza high school, kwanza especially, I'm trying to think about that phase where you've just finished high school, you have that freedom, you don't have responsibilities like that. You know, it's not like you have to go to campus yet. Those few months, because it's between, let's say, December to around August. Apple, that's when you always ambia mtu kitu.
Yeah.
You know, you and your friends, you're together. If your parents tell you this is a bad friend, you won't want anything to do with them. And that's where you can really get lost. That's the point where so many people lose themselves. So your period, how do you make sure that you're finding yourself? Because also what you're talking about, understanding all these things, there's a level of understanding yourself.
Yeah.
It takes me knowing I want to do journalism, I want to be in media, therefore I have to go to school for this and that. But at that point, realistically, most people don't even know what they want to do. They've been told you should be a doctor, be a nurse, be this, but they don't know. So in that period, Glantwill, there's so many people who spend a lot of time there doing the wrong thing, not necessarily the wrong things, but just having fun, you know, going out, drinking, partying with their friends. How do we do the right things so that we find ourselves in that period where you're just becoming an adult, you're still a child, but you're trying to figure out, nenda campus, nenda kusomea nini, what do I want for my future 10 years from now? How do we get through your period without losing ourselves?
I'll be very sincere and be very real with what happens on the ground and why I'm going to answer this way. So first, it's not that easy. In a scale of 10, I would say only 2% it can be possible for you to be able to know exactly what you want at that particular time. Because number one, remember you've been living like a caged bird. So it's when you're just getting the freedom to go out there. It's when umepata ID and somebody is telling you you're right now you're an adult and you have the liberty or the freedom to do whatever you want. So at that particular time, you don't exactly know what you want. What you know is, I want to be free. I am free, actually. Not that I want to be free, but I'm actually free. And therefore, the time I've spent in school, from Form 1 to from Class 1, actually, all the way to Form 4, where there has been a lot of restrictions, I've not been able to do some things, this is the time I want to exercise them. So at this particular time, it becomes a bit hard, because this is the moment where a lot of naivety comes into you. You're so naive, you're so vulnerable, and that at that time, not even anything related to career comes into your mind.
Yeah.
You know, eventually, yes, I'll go to the university, I'll go to college and all that stuff. But at that particular moment, usually, I think the best thing you can do is, nasemanga, okay, experience is not the best teacher, but sometimes you have to experience these things. Because again, at that time, ukiamua kuskip your stage and just become an adult and just become a woman with career, a man with career immediately, there are certain things you'll not do here that later on you'll find yourself going back to. So sometimes you have to do these things. You have to find yourself in that cocoon of confusion where you're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing that. Because like right now, if I remember, after I did my Form 4, I was doing set books. Most people don't know that, but I was doing set books. I was doing set books at that time. I was trying to get into TV as well. Kulikuwa walikuwa na recruit wase act nini, so I was doing set books, I was trying to get to TV, and so many other things I was trying to do at that particular time. And the whole time in my mind, at that particular moment, I thought I wanted to just be on TV. But you see, I grew up and realized that there's so much more I want to do beyond or within that circle. But at that particular moment, I wasn't really so sure. So I had to experience that. I had to go and do the set book, travel around, go to theaters, ni actie watoi wenye wametoka shule wanakuja kuona set books. I do that, get to experience that, so that by the time I'm done and exhausted with it, I'm like, now this is not what I wanted. I've enjoyed it, it's been nice, but I don't think this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So sometimes we have to do those things. I love that you said they're actually not mistakes, but it's a phase of life that you have to go through. So navigating adulthood at this particular stage is usually next to impossible.
Yeah.
Because other relationships at that time, you can't make a same decision. Because at that time, you're just looking at someone, maybe it's a chick looking at a man, and like, this boy is so handsome. And then later on, you grow up and realize, oh,
Nah.
kumbe he was not even handsome. He was not all that.
Yeah.
You know? So, each time, lazima ufanye tu my mistakes. So, I feel like by the time you're now getting into adulthood, ukisha experience hizi zote, now you know I can do this, I can't do this, this is what I should go for, and this takes time also.
Yeah.
It will not be 1 year, it will not be 2 years, you'll still continue to make a series of mistakes. Because even after you become an adult, you'll still find yourself making mistakes.
Yeah.
And that's why unapata, when ni mtu mzima, but bado you're getting conned. The people who lose millions.
Yeah.
When ni mtu mzima and you still get conned. When ni mtu mzima, but you still get heartbroken, meaning you have not yet figured how this thing works.
Yeah.
Bado hujaget ile matrix, you know, you have not gotten the matrix.
Bado
of how
hatujajua, the cheat code, you're still learning.
Yeah,
You're still learning, yeah.
Imagine you are in your 30s, you're in your late 20s, but you have not yet. So how do you expect yourself immediately after high school to navigate
figure it out?
adulthood? It becomes a bit hard.
I love that. I love that you say that. And I think that also calls us to give people the grace to go through that. Because, you know, sometimes when you're older, like our parents, at that age they're expecting, you should be responsible, you should be doing this and that.
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? But there was no grace sometimes of you growing and saying, I've made a mistake, I went out, I drank too much, and sahi najua kuna kitu inaitwa hangover. And now I know what not to do next time.
Yeah.
You know, those small tiny things, even
Yeah.
when you're socializing, sometimes I remember I had friends who, if my mom told me these are bad friends, I was like, Mom, you don't want me to have friends and you're a hater. And I believed they were good friends up until I got to a few months later, a few years later, and I went back, nikambia mamangu, I'm sorry, you were right.
You were right.
So we have to give ourselves that grace, first of all. And I like what you've talked about, figuring out what you want to do. So many of us, when you're young, you don't know what you want to do. Because realistically, the Kenyan system does not prepare us for careers. Right now, it does. But what we went through, 844, ulikuwa nasoma kila kitu.
Exactly.
Everything. Kama una drop science moja. Kama ni nini una drop history ama geography.
Moja.
We fanya hizi vitu zote. Unaenda kwa either chemist, unaenda kwa daktari, lawyer, we don't care. You know, so it's
Agriculture
really,
lazima ingie
lazima
hapo.
ukue mkulima. Do you know, when I remember my friends pandad maize for months for KCSE.
Yeah.
Right now, huyo hata hizi panda tidania. But then, we were really taught to be all-rounded, but we didn't focus on what we like, what our passions were. Sometimes even the arts were not appreciated. Unasema unaenda kwa musician, wazazi wanakuangalia like, wow, kumbe you hate us. You just want to throw your life away. There was that confusion, and it took time for us to figure ourselves out. But then there was also pressure. Because may I remember, I went to my first course, I like to say this, I went for actuarial science. Makiu mimi na hesabu, 2 worlds apart. And I went for actuarial science because I had a friend from high school who was going for actuarial science. And then I was so confused because I wanted to do law before. And then nikapata hii, na sikuwa najua nataka kufanya nini. So nikasema, time inasonga, and I don't know what to do, I'm so confused. Let me just get this and start. And so many people make that mistake. You find that you've gone through years and years, you've studied something and you're not passionate about it. I was fortunate, sikukaa hapo for more than 1 week, because I remember my first class, nilipanic, nilishtuka. Walianza kuongelea vitu za statistics and I was like, wow. I'm lost.
Yeah, so we are doing this.
And we are doing this for 4 years. Nilijiuliza maswali. Nikasema, Cheryl, tebu rudi ufikirie tu vizuri. And I thought it through. I found myself in communication. But people get lost in that phase, Rose. We've had so many people like sema, walisomea kitu na hawafanyi practically. Ama, they're doing completely different things. They went to school, they dropped out at third year, wakaachana nayo. But it's because of the confusion of not knowing what we wanted to do. So how do you find yourself? How did you find yourself, Rose? How did you find that what I'm doing now is what I want to do and I love it?
I'd be honest. Let me give you a very small, short story. So when I finished high school, I got a good grade. I was called in the great University of Nairobi. Yeah. So when I went there, I went to Chiromo, and I'm seated there. It's a whole lab thing. You're told you're supposed to do chemistry. You're supposed to have a lab coat at the laboratory, and I'm like, what? This is not the one. So I decide like, you guys, it's been a month. Can I see if I can go to main campus and probably fix myself in somewhere. I really wanted to do economics, and I was so into it. But my classes were a bit lower, so I had to go do another different course, which I didn't want to do it by that time. I remember me doing economics, psychology, and communication. And all by the time the 4 years zilikuwa zinaisha, nilikuwa nimesha decide ni psychology, you know, because I went through that whole journey. I experienced the lab thing, and I was like, not today.
Not me.
Wacha tu. Wacha nilipe ita ya kutransfer. I just go to this other school, and I found myself on this other side, and I saw myself going through the whole journey of doing the 3 courses, dropping one, and I'm like, let me just do 2 again. I do another one, I drop another one. I'm like, so by the time you get to another point of understanding this is what really you want, by the way, it really takes a lot of time, and it's a journey every single day, because you know also your mind is growing on a daily basis, your understanding is growing on daily basis, your interests also are turning as time goes, because you also realize how the world is turning, you know. And so at the end of the day, you realize this is not what I want to do right now. I want to do this, and it's not a mistake. Actually, being in that situation does not mean you're a failure. Quitting jobs, trying businesses, quitting maybe a course umefika tu ndio umemaliza tu form 4 umeenda kufanya computer, umetoka kwa computer wamekwambia enda ufanye tailoring, na maybe utaki kufanya hiyo kitu. So you quitting does not mean you're a failure. Actually it's you understanding what you want with time, because being able to be in a place where you are 100% sure, guys, this is what I want to do, it takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort, and some people are not even practicing the careers they learned in school. Wako kunje wanafanya something so different. You ask someone, what did you do in school? I'm an economist. And they're like, that wasn't my thing. Probably even kuna wenye wanasemanga nilikuwa nafanya mzazi na nilimshampea certificate. Unampata huko Grogon akifanya kazi yake vizuri sana akiuzia madema top, you know. So it all sometimes acha mtu akwe in that space ya ku try as many things as much as possible. And also another thing I also like to say, in the process of you trying as many things, also don't make 2 mistakes. Because at the moment where you keep turning and tossing, you also need to be in a place where you can also be willing to learn from other people's mistake. So isikuwe ni makosa zako zote ndio unataka ku experience. Umekaa tu so makosa zangu zote nataka learn from a particular person. No, there are things that you also learn. Unajiambia, by the way, nikienda na njia as a person, probably ndio nimefika tu maybe 25. Honestly hata nyinyi mkiona nikienda njia, wacha nisiende tu juu, sitaki kulearn makosa si lazima inifanyikie. Umeget? So I can also learn from people's mistakes. You can also experience people's success. In the process they realize, so and so walked in this journey. I'm just 25. Probably I want to be, by the time I'm getting to 30, I have this and this and this achieved. So and so has walked in this journey. I'm willing to walk the same journey because most likely I'm going to be in a good place. Or so and so walked in this journey and ukweli hata nyinyi mliona haikuwezekana. You get? And also there's also another thing also that I like saying, that the fact that also somebody else has failed in a journey does not mean you can also fail. Unaelewa? So ndio maana tunasema life ni kujaribu. You have to try as much as you can, but if you can be able to learn from people's mistakes, please do
that. I love that.
I think I agree with the last statement. I'm one person who never learns from people's mistakes, because I believe everyone's journey is different. And I'll give a real life example. Like right now, there are people, I'm in content creation, right? So there are people who are doing content, right? And so many people are doing content right now. But how many people out there who are putting out content have been approached by brands or are working with brands, or, you know, they've been able to monetize whatever they're doing? Not everyone.
Not everyone.
So if you decide to follow or decide to learn from the mistakes of somebody who is not able to strategize or to figure out how they can convert this into what will bring them something in return, you might end up not trying this content creation because you learned the mistakes of someone who's not supposed to, you are not supposed to learn from them.
So it's actually what we say, like you have to, out of 100% from somebody's success, you can have to pitch a little fruits here and there and realize so and so anakuanga mpoa sana, by the brands zinamchukua, huyu mse ni mnoma, huyu mse ni mkali, but sasa kuna vitu zingine hata nyinyi mnaona kuna mali ana skipping, so ako kadogo kenye unaona huyu mse nikiongeza yangu mzuri hapa nitakuwa niko sawa.
Yeah.
You also need to inaitanga ku pick. You just don't need to learn everything. Sindio?
And I
you
think
can also
that
pick
just
from
to sum up both of your thoughts, learn from people you aspire to be like.
Exactly.
Not someone who's unajua kwa sababu in different journeys mtu anaweza kuja ku criticize me as a presenter. Someone can come and tell me, I didn't like the way you started that conversation. Next time, see you try something like this. But if it's someone who's never done presenting, I'll take that comment, store it somewhere, leave it at that. But if it's someone who's
it's all like
wow.
Just pick it up like maybe it will be used somewhere else.
Maybe it can come. There's apply something in future.
It's so true.
Yeah, but if someone has been doing this for years and years and years, and I admire them and I see what they've done, I see the journey that they've been on, akuja niambie, what you're doing, if you do this better, it could help you, you know. So I think there's that. Aspire to listen to people you aspire to be like. Si ati mtu mwenye mko level same alafu anakuambia unafaa ufanye hivi ndo upande. Japanda sasa mtapanda aje, you know. But then again, let's talk about iyo pressure, because unajua that's something that I think tukikuwa adults unasikianga tu mini adult, but then we try to ignore the fact that realistically most of us are still children deep inside.
We are grown children.
Yeah, you know, because me na cartoon, I'll watch that and that's going to make me so happy and I'll feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
So there are those tiny things that we still appreciate from our childhood, and I think there's a concept of healing your inner child that comes through that. So how do we then understand as adults to give ourselves grace instead of unajua watu wanaweza kuwa wamekupatia the grace to be yourself, but you yourself feel the pressure because you look at someone else who's 19 and you feel huyu ako successful, mbona mimi siko successful? Or you look at someone who's 25 and you wonder, why is this person where I want to be and I'm not even close to that? And you feel like you don't have your life figured out. So unajipatia pressure because of looking at other people's lives. So how do you give yourself that grace of kusema, hii jani yangu ni yangu, like ya huyo ni yake, and I appreciate it, but how do you detach from ile pressure ya society na social media? Because unajua hiyo ndio inaua watu, hiyo ndio inafanya watu kwa depression, all that. How do you get over that, Glantwill?
I love that question. I really love it. And I will tell you this. The reason why we have so much pressure is because when we were kids, there were uncles we were looking up to. And we kept saying, huyu uncle ananga tu pesa throughout. And you know, and then there are other things, statements we made like, me at 25, me I'll have a car. There's no way I'm going to be like Nani and Nani.
Nitakuwa nimehama.
Nitakuwa nimehama, I'll be in a very nice neighborhood.
Niko married.
Yeah.
Yo.
So you get to 25, that's where the pressure comes in. You get to 25 and you realize that, oh, so Uncle Nani couldn't buy a car because of A, B, C, D, Z.
It's not just him. It's more.
Alikuwa nakujanga home atuachie hata Bob, kumbe mshahara yake ilikuwaga 15k. At least I need 25k juu time imesonga. Kumbe hiyo time walikuwa nalipagwa 15k. So ilikuwa kidogo hata high meet needs zake. Now you are in that shoe, wearing that exact shoe of getting that 25k, getting that 30k. So unajiuliza, ni gari utafuel na hii 30k hata ukisema ununue hiyo gari. So you come and realize that, by the way, life is even I expected. Life is not how I saw it as a child. So that pressure kicks in kwa sababu unajiambia, now that I know the reality, and I still have my big dreams that I had told myself I want to achieve A, B, C, D, Z. And when you look at the clock, it's ticking. Inakwambia, by the way, today you are 26 years and 1 week. Next week you are 26 years and 2 weeks. So like, shit, I'm going to actually hit 30 before I even achieve all this. Because when you look at your future, but don't know like you are blurry, because you're still not figuring out what exactly will bring me millions. What exactly can I do? And just like wake up one morning and I'm just a millionaire. You know, unajiuliza hizo maswali every day. Sometimes it's not even societal pressure. It's internal pressure that comes in within. And I will tell you this because of a personal experience. You know, there are times I sit and ask myself, what is that one thing I really have to do that has not been done or has been done and I can improve and make millions from it? Because whatever I'm already doing now is not giving me the millions. And therefore, I hence give myself pressure. The pressure to want to make it. I constantly have to keep thinking. I'm still thinking all the time. Nafikiria. Sasa nifanye nini? Nifanye nini? And then right now, the era we live in and the age we live in, money is everything. Ukitembea, it's money. Hanging out is money. You want to go out for coffee with your friends, it's money. Kila kitu, even just a small 5 minutes meeting is money. So the pressure lazima too,
Yeah.
and it's not just about society. It's the reality that money is everything.
Yeah.
And that's why sometimes it's so hard to give yourself that grace. Juu unakaa unajiambia, sasa hata nikijipatia grace, hii neema najipatia hii neema hadi lini? When other people of my age
Yeah.
wanasonga kusonga, you know? Because another thing is you're not guaranteed that at the end of this suffering period, I'll make it. What if you're the one who will be used as an example to suffer for the rest of your life? Maybe when
What
you
if you're that uncle
what if you're
Maybe
that
that's
uncle?
the drunkard one, you
The
know.
drunk uncle who comes there.
Honestly, lazima utajita mkutano ujiambie, hii lazima tu I need to give myself pressure.
Yeah,
Juu
I
kama wewe ndio
understand
mfano.
that. Now I want to later on nataka to translate your pressure to motivation, because I feel like now the perspective ndio tunafaa to change, because pressure iko, yes, ni constant, but then how do we change our perspective to say I'm not putting pressure on myself, I'm just motivating myself because I need to do more. So that I will get into later on. Wacha nibaki hapa kwa watu wenye tulikuwa tunaona, and then this is the reality. I don't know if it's just me personally, but when I was in 2010 Zuko, I keep talking about this. Life was brighter. Life ilikuwa vibes. You know, everything was, adulting did not seem as extreme as adulting is right now. And the reality that right now we're facing some issues. Atukwa, like the story of being a Mau Mau fighter. Like, I don't even want to touch more about that, but who thought?
Yeah, who thought?
Who thought?
Yeah.
But I want us to take a short break. Nataka tuende break kidogo tu, alafu turudi and get deeper into this conversation, because I love what we are talking about today. And I want to hear from you as well. Go on our platforms at Y254 and tell us, what is the biggest lesson adulting has taught you so far? What's the biggest takeaway? Saizi, mtoki kuuliza, nipatie tu lesson moja. The biggest lesson that you've learned from adulting. Let us know on our platforms at Y254 and stay tuned, because tunarudi. This conversation is not even close to being over. So stay tuned. Let's take a short break and I'll see you soon.
Y254. Imagine.